started back in the early 40s.
The car wreck or?
Leading up to this point.
It was off high 40.
I don't think I've told the story of my grandpa. That's what I'd like to tell, then I'll tell my testimony. Can y'all see me over this? Truly, back in the early 40s, my grandpa, John W. Rucks, was an old-time evangelist. And what I mean by old-time is he depended totally on the Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, he preached the word. He went for all over the country, especially all over Arkansas. And he would set up a revival on a street corner, anywhere that he could find people. He started a revival. You know, that'd be sort of hard to do these days. Mm-hmm. But this one particular time, he had my mother and her two sisters and my grandmother, and they were driving up around Winslow, Arkansas. So my grandmother asked him, said, "Where are you going, Papa?" They called him Papa. And he said, "Well, I've been praying, and the Lord spoke to me and said that if I drive up in this area, that I will see a man coming out of the woods carrying an axe. So I'm just waiting on till I see a man coming out of the woods carrying an axe." And it wasn't long till they was driving along through Winslow, and here comes a man coming out of the woods with the axe on his shoulder. And he pulled off on the side of the road, and he walked up to this man, and he said, "My name is John W. Rucks, and I'm a preacher." And he said, "We've been looking for you, preacher, because we want to have a revival." And they set up a brush arbor, and they had a big revival where many received the Holy Ghost, and a lot were baptized. And I heard that story all my life, you know, of how there was a man come out of the woods with an axe. And my grandpa told him he was the preacher, and he said, "I'm expecting." You know, the Lord works on both sides. Mm-hmm. And so all through my life I had heard that. And back in the year 2000, we had I think it was 2000, somewhere in that area, we had a conference in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we went up there, and Brother Gary went into the ministers where they vote, and it's probably about, I don't know how many preachers there, 1,500 or so. And he sits down beside this young preacher, and they introduced himself. What was his name? You don't remember?
That was back in the 40s.
Anyway, he sits down, he says, "My name is Gary Casteel," and he introduced himself and called his...
Maybe I'll think of it.
But anyway, he said, I'm Brother so-and-so, and I'm from Winslow. Well, you know, that struck a chord with my husband. He said, "Oh, my wife's grandfather went to Winslow years ago," and said he preached a revival, and said, "We heard this story about a man coming out of the woods with an axe, and we've heard that all of our life." And that young man said that uncle that had the axe was his uncle. So he knew all about it. He said, "We've heard that story too, but they had heard it from the other side. Their dad was looking for a preacher, and he had an axe on his shoulder." Isn't that wonderful?
Amen.
Well, you know, when you hear something all your life, and then you hear the other side. But then the other blessing, he said, not only were there souls that were baptized and received the Holy Ghost, but there were many preachers that came out of that brush arbor service, and he was one of them. And this was later on. But through the years, I had heard that story over and over, and it had built my faith so much that you walk with the Lord. The Lord walks with you. He guides your steps. Amen. He knows what you're going through. He's there with you. Sometimes we don't recognize it. But it's just like a parent and their child. You know, if your child is fearful of something, you don't have to talk to that child. You can just touch them.
Right.
And they know it's going to be okay. You know, you can put your arms around them, and they relax because now it's going to be all right.
Right.
But the other day, this is my testimony. Monday night, I was meeting Jeff and Carla. We was going to a sectional banquet. And I wasn't familiar with this, how to get into this church. I'd seen it, drove by it a million times, but never really gone into the driveway. But Monday evening, it was sort of dark, and I missed the driveway. So I went on, and then I saw, it was on the England Highway, I saw there was a wide space, there was an extra lane on the right, extra lane on the left, and I thought, I'll just make a U-turn. I looked both ways, it was clear. It's sort of like that commercial Mayhem says, "It's all clear." And I'm thinking, yeah, I can just make a U-turn and go back. The minute I committed myself to go across that lane is when I saw lights coming toward me. And it looked like a freight train coming. And Carla was watching this from the driveway, and she said she immediately knew what was fixing to happen. But when I saw that it was too late to do anything, I just gunned it forward. You know, at that moment, you don't have time to pray or do anything. You just do what you know, reflex. It was just a reflex. When I gunned it, he hit me broadside right behind the driver's seat in the passenger door, the sliding door. And I felt, I didn't really know what had happened. I think it just happened so fast that when it came to a dead stop, I realized the airbags had gone off. And I was in somewhat some pain, but I was too scared to move. I was just stiff. And Jeff and Carla saw the whole thing, so they made their way over, and Jeff got in with me first, and Carla was hollering, "Don't move her, don't move her, don't touch her, don't touch her." And you might find this hilarious, but you know, I have a funny mind, a funny sense of humor. But it just, for a split second, that story I told Brother Albert came to me about the man and woman that was on a motorcycle, and it was so cold they turned their jackets around to keep warm, and they had a wreck and was laying on the side of the road, and the paramedics showed up and asked the cops, "Are they okay?" And they said they were okay until we turned their necks around. But getting back,
Broke their neck.
but Carla was hollering, "Don't touch her, don't touch her." And in my humorous mind, I was thinking, yeah, I don't want my neck broke. So I said a few words to Jeff, and he got out, and Carla got in, and then I realized, you know, the seriousness of what might be, because there was somebody telling me the ambulance is on its way, and they're going to put you on a gurney, and they're going to put a brace around your neck. You possibly have back and neck injuries. And I was going, oh, I don't want to go through this. And I told Carla, I said, I'm so sorry I ruined Phil's back. You know, I was sorry or worse that I ruined my nut, and I wrecked my van, and I was just so distraught, you know. Wasn't thinking really about myself. And they had a doctor that got in, and he wanted me to move my arm, and there was a knot, and I don't know if y'all can see this or not. Y'all see this arm? That's where the airbag beat me up. I can't show you the rest of my body. But it's just about like that. But calling them with me after I had talked to the doctor and talked to Jeff, and then Carla got in. I looked over at Carla and I said, "Are they praying over in the church?" And she said, "Yes, they are." I said, "I feel it. I feel them praying for me. I feel like the Lord is touching me." And about that time, they opened the door up and they said, "We're ready for us to take you in the ambulance." And I said, "I don't want to be put on a gurney." And they said, "Well, if you can stand up, you don't have to be put on a gurney." And I got out of that van and stood up, and I walked to the ambulance. And I was praising the Lord all the way, and I said, "The Lord has touched me. They are praying over there in that church, and they know me, and the Lord has touched me." And I was testifying to everybody on my way to that ambulance. And I said, you know, I'm thankful that I know His touch. It's just like if you touch your child, I recognize the hand of the Lord. And it makes you realize more and more these songs about He touched me. Oh, He touched me, and oh, the joy that filled my soul. Because if you are walking with the Lord, you know the touching hand of the Lord. Amen. And He touched me that night. I went through this. It's sort of like, Sister Sharon, you missed that song we sang at the beginning about Mary and Martha, and they were complaining, "Lord, you're 4 days late." Well, you know, He was about 2 seconds late for me, but He was still on time. Right. You know, we don't know really what the Lord is going to do for us or how He's going to protect us, but we just walk with Him and we trust Him. And I'm so thankful for my heritage from way back. Amen. From my grandpa, that he learned how to trust in the Lord, and he carried that on from generation to generation. And I want to carry that on through my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, that when the tough time comes, when you don't have time to call on the Lord, that there's someone praying. They were praying in that church. we don't know sometimes what other people's prayer of protection on our lives is doing. But just being in that prayer room right there, we don't realize what could happen
Right.
out here at this
Amen.
train crossing. The prayer in this room might be protecting someone that's
Right.
on their way to church. And I'm so thankful that somebody prayed for me, and I want to pray for my loved ones. I pray for this church. I'm thankful, and this is new to me for 29 years or so, but I'm thankful for my pastor. He was right there for me. I've heard testimonies. People go, oh, my pastor was just right there for me. He was with me. He sat with me in the hospital, and I know he wanted to be home. Thank you, Brother Harrison, for being there for me.
The name was Hampton.